This morning we come to messages 60 to 63. In these 4 messages, we want to see 3 particular matters. Number 1, the unveiling of Christ with his death and resurrection. Number 2, the simplicity of the Gospel of Mark. And number 3, the matter of the soil. The first point concerning the revelation of Christ, his death, and his resurrection. What are the significances of these 3 revelations? Remember, the Lord lived a life fully according to and for God's New Testament economy. And these 3 revelations are not apart from such a life. They are very much related to a life that is according to and for God's New Testament economy. If we see this, then we will understand why the Lord revealed these 3 things. First, he revealed that he is the Christ. And Christ means the anointed one. He is the anointed one of God to carry out God's commission. And what is God's commission? Some people say, God's commission is that he will be the king, or he is the prophet. But here in the Gospel of Mark, the Lord's unique commission is to impart the triune God as life into men. In fact, this is the same as what the Lord revealed in chapter 4 of this book, the parable of the sower. It seems like the Lord is just repeating himself. In chapter 4, it was a parable. Here, it was a clear revelation. So, the parable is just speaking concerning the revelation of Christ with his death and resurrection. The unique commission of the Lord is to impart the triune God as life into men. And this is also what is revealed in chapter 4. The Lord, as the sower, is sowing the seed of life, the seed of the kingdom, into men. This is the Lord's unique commission. We all need to see this, that these 2, chapter 4 and chapter 8, are just a reflection of one another, of what the Lord is doing. Number 2, not only the Lord, his commission is to impart the triune God as life into men, we also have the revelation of his death and resurrection. After the Lord revealed his person, which is the Christ, he revealed his death and resurrection. Why is there a need for him to reveal this thing? His death and resurrection are the necessary processes, the steps that the Lord needs to pass through for the accomplishment of God's New Testament economy. Now, this is the second preposition in the title that I want to emphasize this morning. The Lord lived a life according to and for. For means the goal of the Lord's life is to accomplish God's New Testament economy. So in order for the Lord to accomplish God's New Testament economy, he needs to pass through death and resurrection. Of course, during that time, the disciples did not understand what the Lord meant, that he needs to die, needs to be resurrected. How do we know this? After the Lord revealed this, they were still arguing. Who is the first among them? Who is the number 1 disciple? And in fact, 2 of the disciples were asking the Lord that one would sit on the right and one would sit on the left hand of his king, of his throne. All these reveal that they do not understand what the Lord is saying concerning his death and resurrection. Yet it is very important to the Lord, because this is the process, the step that the Lord needs to take in order to accomplish God's New Testament economy. This is important because the Lord revealed this 3 times. He revealed it in chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10. On the one hand, he revealed it 3 times because the disciples did not get it. They do not see the importance of this. On the other hand, it also shows that this is very, very crucial. A crucial step that the Lord needs to take in order to accomplish God's New Testament economy. So now we understand why the Lord revealed this. First, He revealed that He is the Christ to carry out God's commission to impart the triune God into man. And then He needs to pass through death and resurrection so that He could accomplish His commission. And not only this, the Lord brought all the disciples with Him to pass through death and resurrection, so that the disciples will be the same as the Lord. The disciples were put into Christ, and the Lord went through the cross, and the disciples all went together with the cross to pass through death and resurrection. Now the life of the Lord Jesus is in us. Today we are His expansion, increase, and continuation. We should continue to live the kind of life He lived, a life according to God's New Testament economy. This happened to the disciples. After the Lord's death and resurrection on the day of Pentecost, the disciples were the continuation of a life that is according to God's New Testament economy. This life is not a life of culture, religion, ethics, morality, philosophy, or improvement of character. Neither is it a life of trying to be spiritual, scriptural, holy, and victorious. The life we live today should be Christ Himself. Only such a life, which is Christ, is fully according to God's New Testament economy. Now we come to the second point, the simplicity of the Gospel of Mark. Amongst the four Gospels, Mark is the simplest of them all. It seems like there's nothing rich or profound in the Gospel of Mark. Our brother says that this book seems to be like plain water. Why is the Gospel of Mark written in such a simple way? And we need to ask this question. Okay. It is not like the Gospel of Matthew, Luke, or John, wherein the Lord spoke a lot of doctrines or He gave a lot of teachings. No. The Gospel of Mark is so simple. And this simplicity should cause us to seek the Lord. Why was this Gospel written in this way? The reason the Gospel of Mark was written in such a simple way, because the emphasis is not on His teaching or on the truth that He revealed. No, the emphasis is on His life. What is this life? A life fully according to and for God's New Testament economy. It's very difficult to understand the life that the Lord lived in this Gospel. And we need all the other books of the New Testament, especially the epistles, in order to define and explain the Gospel of Mark. Therefore, you all need to go back to all those epistles. The epistles are the definition and the explanation of the life that the Lord lived in the Gospel of Mark. And by reading the epistles, we can understand the Lord's life. The life that He lived in the Gospel of Mark is so simple. The record is so simple because it only records one thing: to show us a life fully according to and for God's New Testament economy. In other words, the epistles gives us the definition and the explanation of God's New Testament economy. It gives us the revelation, the truth. In fact, remember, Paul in his epistles was the one who used this word, economy. All the truths are there. But the living out of this truth, the living out of God's New Testament economy is found in the Gospel of Mark. So we are just like the disciples. As we are reading the Gospel of Mark, we see the life of the Lord, yet we don't understand why the Lord lived, worked, and ministered in that way. Then we come to the epistles. Then we started to get unveiled, to see the revelation. This is the reason why the Lord lived such a way. He lived a life fully according to and for God's New Testament economy. Now we come to my last point concerning the matter of the soil. As the Lord Jesus started his ministry, first he called Peter, and Peter started to follow him. So Peter is our representative. In fact, Peter was mentioned in the first chapter of the Gospel of Mark, and also the very last chapter, his name was mentioned. So, Peter is our representative. As the Lord Jesus called Peter, Peter became the soil wherein the Lord wanted to sow himself as the seed of life, the seed of the kingdom into him. And the Lord brought this soil with him. It's very interesting. So Peter was with the Lord in all of his ministry. Peter was in the pocket of the Lord. And the Lord started to sow himself into Peter. And you realize that the sowing was not once for all. It's a continual sowing. Every time the Lord Jesus did something, the Lord was sowing something into Peter. He was sowing himself as the seed of life into Peter. The Lord was sowing into Peter again and again. And this soil is actually not so healthy. That's why Peter did a lot of mistakes. All the conditions of the people that the Lord met are all the abnormal condition of the soil. And you may say, all the conditions of the different people are just the different aspects of the condition of the soil. And it could be a composite picture of an individual. We all have all these sicknesses. And this is the condition of the soil. As the Lord is sowing himself into us, on one hand, he is sowing the triune God as the divine life into us. This is something positive. On the other hand, by sowing this life into us, this life starts to heal the soil. It gradually heals the soil. This is very interesting. The best medicine is one that, on one hand, it supplies something positive. On the other hand, it also needs to supply something negative. The best medicine is, on one hand, it kills the germs that causes the sickness. And on the positive side, it supplies something of a positive element to heal and to make the person healthy. This is exactly the life of the Lord. Oh, the seed of life, the divine life, which is just the embodiment of the triune God, not only supplies us with the element of the triune God. In this element, there's also the healing element. It heals the condition of the soil so that we will become the proper vessel to receive the life of the triune God. As the Lord is sowing himself into Peter, he is sowing gradually, bit by bit. When was this sowing completed? It was completed after the Lord's death, resurrection, and ascension. It was completed on the day of Pentecost. That is the reason why, on the day of Pentecost, when Peter rose up to speak, he was a different person. Before, he committed a lot of mistakes. But in that speaking of his, you realize everything became clear. You realize that the soil was healed. And not only that, the sowing was complete. He was able to expound the truth in a very clear way. Saints, this is what the Lord Jesus is doing to us. We are the soil. And we have to admit and confess our soil is not healthy. But the Lord is so faithful. He is bringing the soil, the soil, with him. And he is constantly sowing himself as the seed of life into us. On one hand, we get the element of God. On the other hand, he is healing our soil, our vessel, so that we will become the proper vessel to live a life according to God's New Testament economy. Remember, look at the day of Pentecost. All the 120, all of them are just the continuation, the reproduction of the Lord Jesus. A life that is according to God's New Testament economy, and a life for God's New Testament economy. May the Lord really bless us, that we will all be the reproduction and the continuation of the Lord Jesus, a life fully according to and for God's New Testament economy.